We'll be around chapter 25, up in that area. So, been emailing with a good Christian friend who's a preacher, and he was recently in the hospital. He had to have a procedure, and pray for him that things go well with him. And he has an interesting view of eschatology, and I see it and I don't see it at the same time. It makes sense, and then it doesn't make sense. So I've been watching videos and reading things that he and this group, it's a pretty large group of preachers and Christians that believe. They just had a whole lectureship based on this concept. And I watched every one of the lectures. And I wrote to him and I said, it seems like this is the only thing you guys talk about. Like every sermon I watch, that one of them has a radio program and I listen to it. And it's like every radio program, and the radio program's not even gone out to people that are prepared to even understand this in this deep and this depth. But that's all y'all talk about. And he said, well, we're trying to convince people that people could see this and experience this. And I thought, well, that's good and interesting. And then I thought about this. In the Gospels, and somebody watching is going to say, there's only one gospel. It's not Gospels. In the 4 accounts of the gospel, Jesus does very little talking about doctrine. You guys ever notice that? He doesn't go into detail about, like, when you go to worship, this is what you better do. Instead, he talks a lot about how to live our lives. And this hit me the other day, man. I'm driving home from the gym in the car, and I'm like, wow. Jesus talks about personal living. Remember a while back I called it behavior modification? That we run things through a filter before we act on it. And if it passes the test, then we act a certain way, but it's not what we're thinking. Like, I want to grab the guy around the neck, but I'll get disfellowship by the congregation if I do. So I can't, so I'll walk away. And Jesus was the Sermon on the Mount is all about Jesus trying to explain that there is no disconnect in what we do and what we think. That they are directly connected and related. That what you do actually comes from what you think. And Jesus is saying, you can't say not to kill and just don't kill. You got to believe in your heart that you don't want to take an innocent life. Right? He said, you can't just not curse your brother. You got to love your brother. And he's trying to show them that there's a connection in what's going on in here and what happens out here. See, you can put on the show all you want. And you can convince old Raj all you want. But God knows what's happening in here. That's why I decided a few years ago to just be a transparent person. And someone says, hey, Raj, we heard that you did this and this and this. And I go, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that, huh? Because I'm not going to try to put on a show for you. I'm not going to try to offend you, but I'm not going to put on a show for you. I just determined that I just can't live my life like that. I just got to be me. It's got to be real. And so when you ask, did you do, did you say, I'll be like, yeah. But if I didn't, and you accuse me of it, and it's just where we're going with the sermon, then that's a whole nother thing. Don't accuse me of something I didn't do. Don't tell me I said something I didn't say. I won't tolerate that. I won't play that. But if I did it and I said it, I will tell you. I'm a man. I'll tell you, yeah, that was a bad idea. The difficult part of Christianity is not showing up for church. It's not, I heard a preacher say this the other day. We don't cuss, lie, drink, or steal. That's how the world knows we're Christians. And I thought, that's not how the world knows we're Christians. Because I know people that aren't Christians that don't lie, drink, cuss, or steal. But they're not Christians. That's not how the world knows that we're not Christians. The world knows that we're Christians because of the way that we face things and deal with things that is so different than what everybody else would do. And one of those things is dealing with, and I'm getting off course of our series because I felt like this just hit me the other day and I had to deal with this. And in dealing with this, I thought, that I'll go flatten their tires. And then I thought that's not what a Christian's supposed to do, but it's what I want to do. And so I went into prayer and I said, God, help me to stop thinking like this, because I know that's not Christian-like. And I titled this, Mean People. How do we deal with mean people? And by mean, I wrote this down because I thought, well, what do you mean by mean? I don't mean abusive people. I don't mean somebody that's hurting and abusing you and doing things. I don't mean how we deal with those people. I got some unchristian-like ideas of how to deal with those people too. But I mean unpleasant people, deceptive people, rude people, unkind people. And maybe it's not even intentional. Maybe they don't even know they're mean, but they're mean. You know the people I'm talking about. You got them in your life. You deal with them at work. You may deal with them at home. You may have a kid who's just mean. I'm talking about mean people. People that when you see them coming, you go, oh, this guy. The people that Dean says, hey, man, you guys want to come for dinner? Who's going to be there? And they say that name, and you're like, oh, man, I think I got something I got to do. I can't make it. You know those people. They're just mean. They're rude. They're deceptive. They're just unpleasant. And they make you miserable. And they make your life miserable. And I wrote this down. They keep you off balance because you're not yourself when you got to deal with them. And people will even tell you that, man, you're just not yourself when they're around. Or you just haven't been yourself lately. And you're like, yeah, because these people make me not be myself. They're mean, they're rude, they're aggravating, they're deceptive, they're unkind. Now, they don't necessarily know they're mean. And they may not be being mean on purpose. And I recognize this, and I even wrote this down. We can also be mean. We can be the mean people sometimes and not necessarily even know that we're being mean. I know that there are people that I don't care for, and I guess I'm mean to them. I guess I'm the guy that they're like, oh, here comes Roger, I'm going to go now. Because I don't like them. And so I purposefully, I told somebody one time, told somebody a lot of times, and you have too, like, man, you're always picking on me. And what do we say? It's because I like you. If I wouldn't like you, I wouldn't even talk to you. But I pick on you because I like you. See, people that we don't like, we don't even really talk to. But people we like, we pick on them, we jab with them, that's how you know when you like somebody. You pick on them a lot. If you don't like them, you don't talk to them. So we can also be mean people, but also note this about mean people. Mean people never think they're mean. Like if you would go and say, hey, man, you're really a mean guy. Like, not me. I'm not mean. Get out of here. I can't stand your face. Well, I'm not mean. Right? Mean people don't know that they're mean. So my purpose today and what I thought about, and I hand wrote some notes the other day. How do we deal with those people? See, that's the difficult stuff with Christianity to me. Showing up for worship service, that's easy. I've been doing that more than I haven't done that. Reading my Bible, I enjoy reading my Bible. I find something new in it every time I read it. And the more I get into the original languages, the more I'm going, whoa, that's not even what that meant. All this time I thought this meant. So I enjoy that. It's just, that's not difficult for me. Prayer, I've been being a more prayerful person. My prayer life was struggling for a while. I'll just tell you. I had winter time I didn't even talk to God. I really did. And I wasn't mad at God. I was just mad. And I didn't know what I was mad at. But I wasn't talking to him. And he was waiting for me to come talk to him. But God was like, I ain't going to go to you. You come to me. I didn't leave. You left. And so finally I was like, hey, God. And God's like, oh, you want to talk now, do you? And I was like, yes, sir. And we talked. And God was like, get it out. Let it out. And now we're talking pretty regularly, numerous times a day. And I talk, he listens, and that's how prayer works, right? But, we go through that, but I was just thinking, it happened to deal with mean people. And there's a person that if I would say their name, and most of you know them, you would go, oh, wow, they're so sweet. Not to me, they're not. They're mean to me. They make me uncomfortable when they're around. It's unpleasant for me to deal with them. Now, everybody else may think they're just the sweetest and most wonderful people in the world. And not when I got to deal with them. They're not. And so I find myself, when I got to deal with this person, being just as me. And then I thought, and I wrote this down, but I ain't even got to read it. I act like the person that I don't like. Think about that. I am acting like the person that I don't even like. Do I want to act like the person that I don't like? I don't like them for a reason. Why would I want to act like them? I'm becoming the person that I don't like. I don't want to be the person I don't like, because that's why I don't like them. It's because they're that person. And so I noted that this is important as a Christian, because if we don't learn these things, these people begin to control us and we become just like them. And now think about it. There are people that you work with, there are people in your life that you got to deal with, and you don't like them, and they're mean, and they're rude, and you see things they do, and they're deceptive, and they gossip, and they talk, but you got to deal with them. And when you deal with them, you become unpleasant yourself. And you're becoming just like them, even though you don't like them. You don't want to be like them, but you're acting like them. This is one of the challenging aspects of Christianity I was thinking about, because God tells us, don't do that. If you want to go to heaven, if you want to be like me, don't do that. But we do it, and we justify it. And when we tell people the story, if I would tell you the story about this person, you would go, oh yeah, dude. Man, I would have backhanded that person if I would be you. Oh yeah, no, you did right. You did the right thing there. Because you would hear my story and you would go, wow, that person treats you like that. Oh yeah, bro. Like, we can even justify it, but God's watching it going, but that's not how we're supposed to act as Christians, is it? And we're going, yeah, but God, you don't know. And God's going, I think I do. I kind of know everything. I think I do. And that's why I decided to talk about this today, because I think this is important. And I actually thought about a biblical example of this that I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes. Now, we begin to feel when we deal with these people that we actually have no choice but to act that way. Right? We got no choice but to retaliate. We got no choice but to be mean back. We got no choice but to say the things that we say when we got to deal with these people. And if I would tell you the story, you would agree. Now, I have a story. It's not my story, because if I tell you my story, then people start to figure out what I'm talking about. And then y'all would be like, really? Well, I heard their story about you. And I actually confronted this person. And I said, hey, why not now? What is the problem? And they acknowledged there's a problem there. But would not tell me what the problem is. And they said, we'll talk about it later. I said, let's talk about it now. There's a problem. You're acknowledging there's a problem. I said, and I don't know what that problem is. Well, help me out. I don't know what I did to make you hate me this much. I said it just like that. Well, we'll talk about it later. And I told them, I walked away and I said, there won't be a later. This is it. We talk about it now, or I never want to hear about it again. They said, we'll talk about it later. I said, this is it. Bye. And I walked away. And if I tell you the whole story, you'd be like, wow, that's my story. But this is an actual story that happened to somebody. And they tried to tell me in that occasion, it was because of this reason. And I got witnesses. No, it's not. It's not because of that reason. You're assuming something that's not true. But anyway, so there was this guy, and a true story, and his mother had become close friends with this lady. And when his mother became ill and was passing away, this woman just took care of his mom. Like, did things, he'll tell you, for his family that they were going to have to do, that when they showed up to do it, they didn't have to do it. This woman just took care of everything. And his mom passes away. Well, they stay real close with this older lady. And she reaches now a point in her life where they're doing for her what she had done for his mother. And his wife in particular is taking care of this woman. She got no family, never had kids, has no family at all. They're the only people in her life. And they reach a point where his wife realizes that we can't take care of her. We're going to have to put her into an assisted living home. And so they do the research and they find a place. And she has enough money in her retirement and from her husband's pension that she's getting that it'll almost pay for the place, but not quite enough. So they realize if they sell her house, the money they get from her house will make up the difference and take care of her the rest of her life. And so they're going to sell her house. In the process of doing this, a man in this woman's life, an old friend, asked if he could stay with her for a while because he was living in his car. And his name was actually Roger. So she tells him he could stay there. Well, this guy and his wife go and they're like, and people are telling them, don't let this dude move in here. This is bad. And they meet the guy and they're like, he's nice. And they tell him, look, we're selling the place. You know, as soon as we get this place sold, then that's the deal. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I understand. I just need a place, you know, for a little while to get me through this situation I'm in my life. So he moves in and they have a garage sale to sell all of her stuff, like an estate sale. And he helps with all that. He helps organize it. He helps sell stuff. And things are going great. And they're like, man, we really like this guy. He's a good guy. Well, they get an offer on the house. And it's time for the guy to go. And he won't go. And they're like, look, you know, it's we're showing the house here, you know. I mean, they already moved her into the assisted living place. They worked it out. And he's staying in the house by himself. And he's like, not leaving. They had the cable cut off. They get a bill for the cable. And she calls and she's like, hey, we had this turned off. Like, well, somebody called, had it turned back on. He had it turned back on. And so they get a bill for this. And they're like, dude, you got to go. Well, he just completely, like, they literally go in and say, get out. And he literally says, no. He said, you can't throw out a tenant like that. It's like a tenant implies you've been paying rent and you haven't been paying rent. We're trying to sell this house. You got to go. And he's like, no, I'm not going. This goes on and they're showing the house and the dude got like an air mattress and a laptop in his thing. And they're showing the house to people and people are like, yeah, excuse the air mattress and the laptop. This dude won't leave. They get an offer on the house. The dude contacts the real estate people selling the house. And they said, this is a fraudulent sale. That these people tricked this woman into giving them power of attorney. And so the deal falls through. They can't even sell the house because of this guy who stayed and will not leave the house. And so this dude and his wife are sitting there. True story. And they're like, I bet I know some people and we could give them money and they're going to break his legs and drag him out the house. You're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. They're beginning to think that way. They're beginning to think that we could hurt this guy, that we'll do something to this guy. At one point they thought, we'll just burn that house down with him in it. Like that's the level that's all they're talking about every day is this dude. He said, you would think the dude was living in my house. The way that me and my wife begin to hate this guy. And this dude would do so many things to just get at us and hurt us. And he's all we talk about. And so his wife calls him one time, puts him on speakerphone. And she's like, listen, Roger, you know, look, this is the deal. You know this. And he said the stuff that this dude told my wife, I was trying to grab the phone and my wife was moving. I was like, you know what? I know how to deal with this. I know what I'm going to do to this guy, right? And he's thinking what most of us would be thinking. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab him by the throat. And I'm going to lay a few right hands into him. I'm going to drag him outside. And I'm going to say, there, you don't live here anymore, right? They contacted the law. The cops were like, y'all let him move in. So there's all these things, and they're going through, and they're like, we're just going to turn the power off, and he just won't have electricity, and we'll poison him. They start thinking these crazy things. And then they realized, and the guy tell you, they realized that we are acting like the guy that we don't like. We're not ourselves. We're not acting like Christians. We're not thinking the way God wants us to think. And then I wrote this down when I thought about his story. It's difficult to be good to people who aren't good to us. The golden rule says treat others as you want to be treated. Well, we make it into the iron rule. Treat others as they've treated us. That's what we start doing, right? Now, what does God say? What does the Bible say? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What does Jesus say? Pray for those who hate you. And what do? I ain't praying for them. I don't pray for people I like. Why would I pray for them? Nope, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get even with them. I'm going to get back at them. And you know what? And I wrote this down too, because I wanted to remember to say this. This idea that treat others as you want to be treated, it sounds good until it happens to you. When it happens to you, you're like, Like, I'll tell Dean all day, no, man, you can't treat people that way. You got to be good to them. And then when it happens to me, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do to them? It's not going to be good. And Dean's like, wait, whoa. What happened to what you told me? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know. Because it's happening to me now, right? And that's why we don't like that. When we are mistreated, we tend to start to take that out on other people as well. I worked for a guy and mistreated, and I would get mad. And I couldn't slap him because I would lose my job. So I would go home. I wouldn't go home and slap my wife, but I would go home with this attitude. And I would start taking this out on other people because I couldn't take it out on him because he was my boss. So I would take it out on everybody around me. And then finally my wife was even like, if you don't quit that job, and it wasn't a recent job I had, it was one I had before. Like, if you don't quit that job, because I would wake up mad that I got to go deal with this. I would wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about this and thinking, oh boy, in just a couple hours, here we're going to go. I was losing sleep over this. And you tend to start taking it out on other people, and you tend to start acting like you don't want to act. So I wrote this down. What do we do about this as Christian people? How do we solve this situation? How do we not become the person that we don't like? Well, I thought about old David. David's story is interesting. You know, the king at this time was a guy named Saul. And Israel picked him to be the king because apparently he was a big, good-looking dude. And of course, you want the big, good-looking dude to be your representative. I don't know what happened with Joe Biden, but they wanted a big, good-looking dude to be their representative, so they picked Saul. And Saul started off actually pretty good. And then the Bible tells us that Saul became not a good king. He began to be an evil king. And so God picked David to be the king. Well, David, an interesting story with David. You know, David, we all know that he killed the lion and the bear that was trying to take his daddy's sheep. And then he goes and he kills Goliath, the giant, over 7 foot tall. And the Bible tells that David took 3 stones because Goliath had 2 brothers. And so apparently David was thinking, after I kill him, the brother's going to want someone to put him down too. And then David takes Goliath's sword, his own sword, and cuts his head off. And as we're going to read in chapter 25, David still got that sword. That's the sword that he's still carrying around, buddy. And it's a memorial for everybody who looks at it, that I did that. You better watch your back. We're actually told, and we're going to read this verse in a little while, that when David got his army together, about 400 men, that when David would go and have a business with somebody, that the Bible tells nobody was left. That David would kill everybody. David was a violent person, by the way. We don't tend to think of David in these terms, but David was violent. And when David showed up, it was a bad day. Well, Saul, actually, if you read the whole story, Saul finds out that David's going to be the new king. And Saul knows about, they're already singing their songs that Saul killed thousands, but David has 10,000s. And Saul's already getting aggravated by this, but now he finds out that some prophet went and ordained David to be the next king. So he got it out for David. And one night, they're sitting there, and David is playing his harp. He liked to play a harp. What a violent man, liked to play his harp, boy. Well, he's sitting there playing his harp at dinner, and Saul takes the spear and throws it at David, and barely misses. And everybody gets quiet in a room. That's when David realizes that Saul's going to kill me. I got to go. So David flees from Saul. Well, the soldiers that had been fighting with David in all these battles and all these conquests, they go with David. Their loyalty lies with David. Reminds me of the movie Gladiator. You remember when Russell Crowe says, when my men hear I'm alive, watch that they show up. They're going to come. Right? Remember he said that in that one scene? He's like, when my men find out I'm alive, they're going to show up in the city. And because he knew we fought together. That's where their loyalties lie with me. He knew that. And David, 400 men, they leave with David. And now he's, one where I said he's fugitive David. He's on the run and he's hiding out. And that's where our story picks up. We'll start in 1 Samuel 25. And this is when David's a fugitive. He's on the run. And he's running from Saul. And he got his 400 men with him. And we're told that Samuel died in verse 1. And everybody in Israel gathers together. They lament. And David arose and he went down to the wilderness of a place called Paran. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, or very rich, literally. And he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now, sheep shearing season, say that real fast. Sheep shearing season was when the rich people became richer. Because what they ended up finding out is they got more sheep than they thought they had. And then they're selling the wool off the sheep. And it's like, it's a good time, man. The rich become richer during sheep shearing season. Well, that's where David spied this place. And this guy's name, verse 3, his name was Nabal. And Nabal means fool. Literally, that's what Nabal means, fool. And the name of the man was Nabal. And the name of his wife was, and you've heard this name before, and you probably never read the story. His wife was Abigail. And we're told that Abigail was a woman of good understanding. She was smart. And we're told that she was beautiful. So this old Nabal, this rich dude, got a smart wife who's really, really good looking. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings. And he was of the house of Caleb. So he's actually a Jew. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. So David's out here, and he's like, they're hungry, by the way. They're fugitives, right? They're on the run. They're hungry. And they're like, man, sheep shearing season for Nabal. And he's like, oh, really? Man, so here's what David decides to do. David gets some guys together, and he says, look, he sends out 10 men. And he says, go to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. Right? David we're talking about here, right? Like people know who David is. People know, and we're going to read the verse in a few minutes, that when David shows up, there ain't nothing left. David is not the guy that you want to mess with. And Saul's going to find out the hard way that David is not the guy that you want to mess with. So he says, and thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both to you, to your house, and to all that you have. All right, we're going to go be nice to this guy. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds, which were with us, we heard them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. So David's like, hey man, if we would have wanted to take something, we could have taken it. If we would have wanted to hurt him, we could have hurt him. If I would have decided that those are my sheep, you couldn't have stopped me from taking them to be my sheep. If somebody was going to come in and mess with you, I could have stopped them or I could have let them. But listen, the whole time they were here, I didn't take it, I didn't touch it, I didn't mess with it, and I didn't let anybody else mess with it. You understand what I'm telling you? You owe me here. Because I could have done bad stuff and I could have let bad stuff happen. But I stood, and we're going to read a few verses. The shearers are going to say to Abigail, they were like a wall around us, a wall of defense. We felt so safe with these people. Nothing could hurt us, right? And he says, verse 8, ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. This is a good day for you, man. This is the day when you get richer. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand, unto thy servants, and to thy son David. In other words, look, bro, just give us some food. You know, look, you're rich. It's a good day. All you got to do is just, look, we took care of you guys. Man, we're hungry. Can you give us some food? Look, we're just being nothing but nice to you. Can you just help us out a little bit? So David's young men came, and they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David. And then they stopped. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, It says there, verse 9, they ceased. Another translation says they waited. The actual translation of the Hebrew term would be they waited, and they waited, and they waited. So in other words, they say it, and they sit there, and the ball's like, like they just keep waiting for him to answer. He's like, okay. So Nabal says to David's servants, who's David again? Now come on, bro. Everybody knows who David is. There are songs about David. Everybody knows what David did to the armies, and everybody knows what David did to Goliath, and everybody knows about the situation with David and Saul. You know who David is. But he doesn't mean who's David. You ever do that? And who are you? Who do you think you are? That's what he's saying. Who does he think he is? Who's David? And who's the son of Jesse? They didn't even say the son of Jesse, but he knows. He just told on himself. He knows. Who's David? Who's the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. There's many rebels out there. Does David think he's a special one? David thinks he got it going on? Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I've killed for my shearers and give it unto men that I don't even know where they come from? To give it to you people? I don't know who you, I don't know David. I don't care about no David. I think not. So his answer is, go tell David, no. And he probably didn't say it in that kind of a way. So David's young men turn their way, right? And they come back to David. And they went up again. They came and they told David all the sayings. And here's where the story picks up, man. Verse 13. Then David said unto the men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also got his sword. You know what sword that is. That's Goliath's sword. And David got his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 stayed by the stuff. This is an overreaction. like this dude said no, and David gets so mad about this. So mad about being mistreated. Does David need to do this, by the way? No. Look, has God always taken care of David, by the way? Yeah. Does David know that God is always taking care of him? Yeah. But somebody was mean to him. And when this person was mean to David, what was David going to do? I'm going to be mean back. Is that how David typically acts, by the way? No. When you read about David, he acts in a just way. Does he need to go? Is the stuff for Nabal or no? Yep. Can Nabal give it or keep it? It's up to Nabal. But David is like, no, man. I'm going to go teach this dude a lesson. So David says, get the soldiers ready. And then David gets his own sword. He's like, I'm going to lead the charge. And listen, when David had enough of something, I'm telling you, David was a violent person. There wasn't going to be anything left. There was going to be no more Nabal. There was going to be no more sheep. There was going to be no more shearers. In fact, we're going to read in just a few minutes that David intends to wipe out Nabal's. And he says, I'm not going to leave a man left standing when I get over there. Like, really, David? Really? Not a man left? No, not a man left. Mean people make us act mean. We become who we don't even like. Is Nabal a likable guy? Apparently, we're going to read that. Apparently, even Abigail doesn't even like Nabal. He's not a likable guy. But he's making David off balance. He's making David not be himself. Mean people make us act like they do, but that's not what God wants for us, is it? No, we're supposed to be better than them. We're supposed to be above that. But he's angry and he's hurt. So there's going to be a slaughter. And if we would read, look at verse 21. We're going to come back and fill in, but look at verse 21. Now David has said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained to him. And he hath requited me evil for good. David's pumping himself up, man. David's making his way down, and he's like, I did nothing but protect this guy. I did nothing but try to help this guy. And for my good, he gives me evil. Right? And we all do that, right? You're driving home, and you're like, all I do for this company, all I do for these people, and they're going to treat me, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do, right? And you picture yourself turning around, and you envision in your mind, you're walking up to them, and you're slapping them, and you're like, you know what I do for you? You know how hard I work for you? You know all I'm willing to give? You know I don't talk bad about you? I don't say all these things that you say about me about you, and you go and you run my name through the ground like that? I haven't done anything to you. I don't know why it is that you got it out for me. I don't even know what happened. And boy, you work, you see, you got all these things going on in your mind, and David's pumping himself up, and he's like, I did nothing but take care of this guy. Look what he says in verse 22. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David. And now he's bringing God into it. He's like, God even knows what I'm talking about. If I leave of all that pertaineth to him by the morning light, any one that pisseth against the wall. In other words, there will not be a man left standing. I swear to God, he says, that there won't be a person left when I get done with this. You think David's mad? I think David's a little angry about this. And listen, guys, we read about David that when he showed up, I'm telling you, it was a bad day. So what you have, and as I was thinking about this and studying through this, I wrote, Nabal does evil for good, right? David does good, and Nabal gives evil. And David's about to do what? Evil for evil. You did evil for good. Now David's going to do evil for evil. But what does God call on us to do? Good for evil. Like he literally says it in that way. Like we're going to read in a few minutes Luke 6. In Luke chapter 6, he literally says, do good for evil. So here's evil for good, and now you're about to have evil for evil. And I paused right here, and I thought about this morning. I wrote down some questions, and I don't necessarily like them after I thought about it more, but just a few of them, though. I wrote a bunch of questions that I thought is for us to consider, but kind of read through, and I don't like some of them, but some of them are okay. Do you want to be like someone that you don't like? Do you really want to be like the person that you don't like? Because you don't like them for a reason. And when you act like them, you're being like the person you don't like, which makes you what? Unlikable. Do we really want to be that? I wrote this question down because we're going to see in the story here, would you rather be ahead of that person instead of just even with that person? Wouldn't you rather be better than that person instead of being like that person? I thought when we go back and tell our story and we tell people about the situation, what story do you want to tell? Do you want to tell that well, Devin did this and said this and said this, and so I went when he was sleeping and I flattened all of his tires and now he knows what was up, right? And you hear people hear that story and be like, what's wrong with you, dude? It's like, what? You know, or do you want to say, you know what? He did this and he said this and he treated me this way, man. And I just thought, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person. So I hope good things happen to him in his life. And I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to be better. And people hear that and think, what? Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I flattened his tires. You got him. I'm trying to be better than him. Oh, wow. Because when I hear the story about people trying to be better than someone, I always go, oh, wow, that's, and I think this to myself, and I even pray about it. I think, man, I wish I could be more like that. And I even pray about it. God, help me be more like that. Help me be a person who doesn't get even, but who just tries to do better. Because I'll be honest with you, and this sermon is more for me than anybody else. I struggle with this. There are people, and there's a person recently that made me so mad, and I don't even know what I did for you to dislike me. Like, you will not tell me what it is that you dislike me so much. I'm asking you. I will fix it. I will apologize for it. But I don't even know what to apologize for because I don't feel that way about you, and it hurts me that you feel this way about me. And you won't tell me, and you treat me like garbage. And that hurts my feelings. And it makes me want to be mean to you. It makes me want to spit at you when I see you walking by. So here's, I wrote a bunch of questions, but here's the last one I'll read to you. What would it look like if we returned good for evil? What would that be like? Can you imagine? So we have evil for good, and we have evil for evil, but then we have the Jesus part of it in the middle. And Jesus says stuff like this: do good to those who mistreat you and pray for them. Don't repay evil for evil. Heap burning coals on their heads. And he doesn't mean literally, he means that you're so good to them that it eats them up, that you're being so good to them, even though they're so bad to you. Now, back to the story, and then I'm going to tell you how that other story about the guy that wouldn't move out the house, there's an ending to that story, and I'm going to tell you about it in just a few minutes. But I want to go back to the story. So what we have is, somebody said this, a commentator said, you got three people in the story, and you got three responses, because Abigail's about to come into play here. You got the one guy, and I wrote down what the commentator said, he's maniacal. He's evil for good. Then you got David, who's predictable, evil for evil. But then you're going to have remarkable, and that's going to be Abigail as she comes into the story. Now, who can blame David? Who can blame him, right? All the good I did for you, man. I protected you. And we're hungry, and I'm just asking for a little bit. You're not even going to miss it. And you laugh in my face? So back to our story here, and we'll pick up about verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. He cursed them. So Abigail's like, what? But listen what they say. Listen what they say about David's men. The men were very good unto us. We were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them, and we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day. All the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. These people not only treated us good, they didn't let anything happen to us. Like usually when we're out there, we got to watch for wolves, we got to watch for thieves, we got people come, they'll try to hurt us, they'll try to kill us, they'll try to steal. And not when these dudes were there. Bro, when people saw David's people, they were like, going the other way. And he said they would talk with us, they would ask us how we're doing, how's your day going? Never asked anything of us, never tried to hurt us. In this one time, because they know it's payday. They know that our rich master is just getting richer. All they did was ask for a little food. And he cussed them. He cussed them. And Abigail's like, what? Verse 17. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do. For evil is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. In other words, he's an evil guy. He's an evil dude. Nabal's not a good person. He's mean. You know this, Abigail. But listen, David is coming back. and when David comes back, I don't think it's going to be a good day. So consider what you could do. Then Abigail made haste. In other words, she got in a hurry. She knows what's up. She knows David ain't playing. She knows who the son of Jesse is. She made haste. She took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine, 5 sheep ready dressed, 5 measures of parched corn, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on the donkeys. And she said unto her servants, go on before me. Behold, I come up after you. But she did not tell Nabal what she was doing. And it was so, as she rode on the donkey and came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. And this is when David was pumping himself up. You know what I'm going to do? I've been taking care of these people, bro. Oh, it's about to... You ever get so worked up, well, you feel your heart beating, and you're like, watch when I see him. Oh, it's about to happen. Watch when I see him. And my wife knows when I get that look, and she's like, stop, let's go. And I'm like, watch. She's like, calm down. I'm like, he ain't calming down. I've already considered the consequences. I've already thought this through. And ain't no talking me down. And Abigail comes out. And remember, Abigail's a beautiful woman. So here comes David. He's pumped up. And he sees Abigail. And he's like, oh, hi. All of a sudden, his mood totally changes. Hey there. Who are you? Well, hi. You ever ready? I've been like this before. I've been mad and I made up in my mind what I was about to do. And then my wife says something to me, or she reaches over and grabs my hand, and it just changes my whole mood. And now I'm like, man, now I can't be mad. I wanted to be mad. But now, Dean and I were talking about this earlier. You know, when you're mad, you want to be mad. When you're grieving, you want to grieve. It's like, I want to be mad and you're not letting me be mad. Man. Or sometimes the smallest thing happens. I'm on my way to work, and when I get there, you know what I'm going to tell him and watch how this happens. And you stop at the store, you know, you get your coffee, you put some gas in the truck, and then somebody tells you something nice, and you're like, man, okay. And then it kind of changes your mood a little bit, and you get the compliment, and now you're not as mad. And you get there and you're like, hey, good morning. Well, I was going to slap you when I got here, but somebody told me I smell good, so I'm not going to slap you now. But that's David, man. He's worked up, he's pumped up, and here comes the beautiful Abigail and all of this food. And David's like, what? Hi, what is this? And I was reading about this, and one of the commentators said that Abigail is counting on David to be the man that she knows he really is. Because she's taking a risk here, right? Because David's worked up. David could say, what? Yeah, now you want to bring me food? I'm taking the food, and I'm still going to do what I said I was going to do. That's how I'm rolling today. But she was counting on him to be the man that she knew he really was. And so he's going to show himself to be. It says that she fell at his feet. Verse 23, we read 21, 22, where David's pumping himself up, right? Verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she hastened and lightened off her donkey, fell before David on her face, bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet. And she said, upon me, my Lord, upon me, let this iniquity be, and let thy handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. She's like, please, just let me explain. Can I please explain? Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, this evil man, Nabal. For as his name is, and his name means fool, so is he. She knows what he is. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. I wasn't there when they showed up. If I would have been there, this would have gone different. I wasn't there. Now, therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, she's going to call on God too. David called on God and said, well, I'll kill everybody. She's going to call on God in a good way. She calls on God. As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood. David's like, he did? It's like, yeah, you're not going to shed blood. David's like, I'm not? Like, when women have power over men, huh? Well, I was like, you're not going to do that. I'm like, I'm not. She's like, nope, we're going to do this. Like, we are? Yep. You're not going to shed blood. From coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand. I'm not. Now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my Lord, be as Nabal. May God bless you. May God bless everything that you do. He will. And now, this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid. For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. She's reminding David of how good he is, and she's reminding David that God has always taken care of him. That's what she's doing. Everybody knew the story of David. Nabal was just being a jerk. Everybody knew who David was. And everybody knew, and even Saul knew, what David was capable of doing. And now she's saying, look, God has always taken care of you. And God is going to continue to bless and take care of you. You don't have to do this, do you? I mean, look, we're trying here, David. We're trying to fix this. I pray thee, forgive the trespasses. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul. Talking about Saul. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God, and the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out as out of the middle of a sling. Now she's bringing up David. She reminded David about his slingshot. She reminded David about that. Look at that play on words she's using. David's like, Yeah. She's like, Saul ain't going to do anything to you. God's going to take care of you. You're going to be the next king. And those who are against you, he's going to sling them out like slinging a stone from a slingshot. And David's like, oh, wow. I do remember when I fought against Goliath. Well, that's his sword I got right here. I do remember that. He says, there will be no grief to thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord. Either thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt with my Lord, remember thine handmaid. Wow. David is perfectly mad. And now he gets perfectly glad. David's like, I am just so mad, and you here are changing my mood. We all need, I wrote this down, we all need someone to talk us down. We all need someone to say, stop, calm down, don't be like that person. You know what we have a tendency to do? When we're mad, we try to talk to people that make us more mad and that build us up more, right? And we tell a story and they're like, yeah, dude, you need to, we avoid the person that's going to say, calm down and stop. We don't want to talk to that person because we know that person's going to talk sense into us. So here's David being talked down. And there was a verse I was going to go to and read, but in a couple chapters later, the Bible says that when David showed up, there was not a man spared. When David went into a village to destroy it, there was not a man spared. David was violent. David took care of business. He was bred to be a warrior. That's just what there was something in this dude. Remember, he grabbed the lion by the whiskers. Who would do something? I've seen lions. I ain't trying to grab one by the face. I'm not trying to pet it. I'm not trying to get close to it. There needs to be a wall between me and the lion, especially when they stand up and you're like, all right, dude, look. There's a reason they're called the king of the jungle. And David said, I grabbed him by the whiskers and made him let go of the sheep. Like, there's just something in this dude that's just fearless. He's violent. He's fearless. He took out Goliath. He's like, y'all letting Goliath talk? Like, I don't think so. I'll fight Goliath and his brothers. He kills Goliath, cuts his head off, puts it under his arm, and brings it back to the camp. He's like, somebody want Goliath's head? What y'all want to do with this? Right? Like David, he was fearless. He was aggressive. He was violent. And Nabal was about to get it coming to him, what he had coming, and David was going to bring it. But she talks him down. The Bible says later on, if we would keep reading the story, that Abigail went to tell Nabal, verse 36, about what had happened. But Nabal had a feast for a king. And Nabal's heart was merry with him, and he was very drunk. So she didn't tell him about it. She waited till the morning. You know, sometimes you can't talk to people. So she waited till the next day. And the next day, the Bible says, it came to pass about 10 days after that Nabal dies. She tells Nabal the next day, verse 37, what happened. And Nabal said it became like stone. Like he freaked out. Like he realized how close he came to death. Well, God will, what does God say? I'll deal with that. I don't want you to deal with those people. I deal with those people. 10 days later, Nabal dies. And then what happens? Abigail marries David. Like what? That's how the story unfolds. Read your Bible. There's some weird stuff there. Nabal dies, and then David takes Abigail to end up being his bride, his wife. And do you think it was just because she was beautiful? No. It's because of what she had in here that touched David and changed David into what he was about to do. And that's why you have evil for good, and then you have evil for evil, and then you have good for evil. And that's what God calls us to do. God calls us to be like Abigail. You know, you're coming to kill us, but I'll be good to you. You know, you're more powerful than us, but I want to be good to you. I want to do something good for you. And that's why the writer said, the same commentator that said maniacal, predictable, and remarkable, the same commentator said, you have three people with three responses, but only one hero. And that's true, isn't it? You got three people, three responses, one hero. And that's Abigail. David's not the hero of the story. Abigail is the hero of the story. And I wrote this down. I said, I was thinking it to myself, so I quickly wrote it down. Christians only have one choice. If we're going to really be Christians, like we're going to talk about this, and that's what gets me, man. We will argue to the end of the earth about baptism. Baptism is essential to salvation. You don't do that, you ain't going to heaven. But let me tell you something. This is essential to salvation. If you don't act like this, you ain't going to heaven either. If we cannot find it in ourselves to repay good for evil, then the Bible says, guess what about you? Then you're no better. You just as soon not be. I told somebody the other day, they were arguing about something. I said, even if you convince them, they're still not a Christian, right? I mean, baptism is essential to becoming new in Christ. But on top of that, we got to change who we are. And change happens in here. Not behavior modification, really changing who we are. Everybody can repay evil for evil. That's what we do. That's what everybody in the world does. Well, how do people know you're a Christian? Well, I don't drink, cuss, smoke, talk to people. No. How do people know you're a Christian? Because when they're mean to me, I'm not mean back. Now, how do you do that? Well, it ain't easy, because that dude trying to pass me going up the bridge the other day, I let him know that he wasn't getting ahead of me. I'll tell you that right now. You want to be in that lane? You stay in that lane. You ain't getting in front of, right? We do stuff like that. And then I'm watching the gas gauge do this while I'm making sure the dude don't pass me. And I'm like, well, I showed him. I showed him he ain't getting in this lane. Like, what do we do? We're such idiots. Does it matter if the guy gets around me? In my mind, it did at that moment. I think back, I'm like, I don't care if the dude goes around. But I just was going to let him know that you cannot get a free pass up in this place. But we do that all the time, don't we? They're talking about me, I'm talking about them. They looked at me wrong, I'm look at them wrong. You ran into me with a shopping cart, I'm going to knock your shopping cart over. Because I, for a long time, lived my life, not as a guy who gets even, but as a guy who gets ahead. I'm going to one-up you. You did that to me, watch what I'm going to do to you, and you ain't going to like it. God calls on us to not be that at all. God calls on us to make changes that are very difficult to make. And this indeed is one. So say we would look at the book of Luke in chapter 6. And we'll close with this. Luke chapter 6, verse 27 and 28. Woe unto you, when all men shall speak well of you, for so did the fathers to the false prophets. But I say to you, which hear, love your enemies, do good to them which hate you, bless them that curse you, pray for them which despitefully use you. And unto him that smiteth thee on the one cheek, offer the other. And to him that taketh away thy cloak, forbid not, and taking thy coat also. Give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. And then look what he was saying, verse 35. Love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing again, and your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. What's he saying? That God is nice to you, even though you're mean. And he expects us to be nice to those. And look what your enemies. He didn't say be nice to people who are nice to you. He didn't say be good to people who are good to you. He said be good to your enemies. And my last question is, how often do you do that? I'll be honest. I try to be a pretty honest person, man. I don't do it very often. I do the opposite. I'm the guy that I want to get more even, and I want to show you, and I want to tell you, but I got to realize that if I want to be a Christian, if I want to go to heaven, along with all these other important things we talk about and going to heaven, then I got to work on this. And the sermon was more for me than anyone else, but I'm sure we can all relate. May we all work on this. May we all try to do better than this. Because if we want a home with God, that's apparently what he's asking of us to do. And that's my message for today.